Somewhere inside a cancelled Clone Wars episode, 2 Mandalorians in red armor broke into a separatist prison on the ice world of Stygian and pulled Maul out of his cell. Most fans never saw it happen. The scene was buried inside a 4-issue comic, one of roughly 50 Clone Wars stories that were scattered across comics, novels, and unfinished animation after the show was cancelled. Inside those stories, the Clone Wars was becoming something darker. The Jedi were being pushed into choices that challenged everything they stood for. The criminal underworld was emerging as a power equal to governments, and ancient Force mysteries were beginning to reshape the conflict itself. Most of these stories were never animated. Some were folded into later shows without credit, while others became impossible after newer stories contradicted them. A few were abandoned entirely, because they would have taken Star Wars in directions nobody was ready for. In the comic Son of Dathomir, Sidious would not move on the Republic until one last threat was removed: Mother Talzin. Dooku believed she was already dead. Sidious knew better. The fact that Maul was alive at all proved she still existed somewhere. Years earlier, she had given up much of her own life force to restore Maul's shattered mind and body after he was found half-mad on Lotho Minor, crawling on mechanical spider legs through garbage. The sacrifice had drained her so completely that the Sith could no longer sense her through the Force. She was invisible, and she was waiting. Sidious used Maul as bait to draw her out. Dooku tortured Maul with Force lightning inside the spire, trying to break him. When that failed, the Mandalorians came. Saxon set off explosives on a lower level, while the droids scrambled to respond. Cass cut through the cell door. Maul used a grappling wire as an improvised zipline down the frozen mountainside, while Saxon and Cass flew beside him. They reached the gauntlet and left Stygian behind. On Zanbar, Maul rallied the remnants of the Shadow Collective. His loyalist Mandalorians, the Pike Syndicate, and Black Sun all answered the call. Grievous hit them first with a full droid invasion force. The Mandalorians had heavy firepower, but Grievous had numbers. Transport after transport landed, the droids kept coming. Maul took the field and destroyed Grievous's Magna Guards before dueling the general himself. The Mandalorians were being overwhelmed. Maul called for retreat and covered the evacuation with a bombing run. He regrouped at Ord Mantell inside a Black Sun fortress and set a more ambitious trap. When the Separatist fleet arrived, Maul let his ground forces get surrounded on purpose. Saxon led the Mandalorians into choke points, fighting house by house, buying time. While the droids closed in, Maul led his gauntlet fighters in a flanking attack on the fleet above. He boarded the Invisible Hand, stormed the bridge, and held the Darksaber to Grievous's throat. He forced Grievous to shut down the droid army's command signal. On the surface, every battle droid froze and collapsed. Saxon's men started tearing them apart. Meanwhile, Dooku had landed at the fortress with his Magna Guards. He cut through every Night Brother warrior sent to stall him. When Saxon's men arrived with guns raised, Dooku was surrounded. For one moment, Maul held both halves of the Separatist war machine in his hands. Talzin appeared as an apparition and tried to turn Dooku against Sidious, warning him that his master was already searching for a replacement. She had learned that lesson personally, years ago, when Sidious promised her a partnership and stole her son instead. Dooku accepted, though only as a ploy to buy time. The Jedi got involved. Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, Aayla Secura, and Tipley tracked Maul to an asteroid outpost in the Bright Jewel system. A Mandalorian Super Commando helmet left behind at Ord Mantell had given away the connection. Maul and Dooku fought all 4 Jedi and escaped. Dooku used the Force to pull Tipley to him and drove his blade through her gut. On Dathomir, the endgame began. Talzin tried to drain Dooku's life force to restore herself to a physical body. She needed a blood sacrifice. Dooku would be the sacrifice, but Sidious had anticipated every move. He arrived with Grievous in a cloaked interceptor. Talzin returned to flesh and blood, only to face the combined Force lightning of both Sidious and Dooku at the same time. Maul stood behind Talzin, feeding his power into her. 2 Sith Lords against a Night Sister mother and her son. Talzin threw up an energy barrier, but Grievous climbed back into the fight. Saxon and Cass arrived in the gauntlet, screaming that Dathomir was lost, and Talzin used the Force to throw Maul into the ship before he could argue. Saxon and Cass held him down, so he would not waste her sacrifice. Grievous walked up slowly and stabbed her through the chest with 2 lightsabers. Her body aged years and seconds and crumbled into a withered corpse before it hit the floor. Sidious looked down at what remained and called her entire existence nothing but a dream. Black Sun and the Pikes pulled out in the same hour. Maul was left with Saxon, Caste, and a handful of loyalists. The isolation is exactly where the Siege of Mandalore found him. In the novel Dark Disciple, the Jedi Council did something they had never done before. They voted to assassinate Count Dooku. The war had gone on too long. Dooku had killed too many people. The Council decided that removing him from the board was the only path to peace. They chose Quinlan Vos for the mission and paired him with the one person who knew Dooku's habits well enough to get close, Asajj Ventress. Vos was ordered to approach her undercover. She was not supposed to know he was a Jedi or that the Council was behind any of it. He found her on Pantora, tackled a target she was chasing, and inserted himself into her world. Ventress was intelligent, driven, and did not suffer fools. She was also a striking woman, and Vos wouldn't need to notice her without giving himself away. Over time, their partnership turned into something the Council never expected. Ventress taught Vos how to fight like a bounty hunter and how to disappear inside the underworld without the Temple's protection. She taught him to use the Force in ways the Jedi never had, to draw on emotion without being consumed by it. They worked together across multiple systems, chasing targets, dodging local authorities, sleeping in ship bunks, and training side by side until the partnership became personal. They fell in love. If you want to see more videos like this one, a quick subscribe means you will always be the first to know. They made plans to leave both the Jedi and the underworld behind. For a brief window, Ventress imagined something she had never allowed herself to imagine: peace. A life without the Sith, the Jedi, or the bounty, just the two of them. The mission pulled them back. Their first attempt on Dooku failed. Vos was not strong enough. The Council ordered him to train further, and Ventress took him to Dathomir. She showed him the Night Sister technique she had learned from Talzin. She took him to a pool of dark side energy beneath the surface and helped him tap into his anger without losing himself. The technique was unstable. Kenobi saw the danger before anyone else. Vos was drifting, and the Council was letting it happen. Dooku showed Vos the kill order. Everything the Council had done, the undercover approach, the pairing with Ventress, the mission itself, had been built on a lie. Vos was the weapon. He was never the partner. The Council debated whether Vos had truly fallen or was still loyal. Kenobi pushed for caution. Windu pushed for action. Anakin was caught in between. They sent Vos on a second mission against Dooku, but he failed again, allowing the damage to spread further. Dooku's agents leaked Republic intelligence, and people died. The weight of the Council's original decision pressed down on every choice that followed. Every attempt to fix the problem created two new ones. In the end, Ventress stepped between Vos and Dooku's Force lightning. She took the blast for him. She died in his arms, and neither of them looked away. Vos carried her body back to Dathomir and lowered her into the Night Sister pool. Her face sank beneath the black water. The Force whispered a single word around him: "Sister." Obi-Wan delivered a eulogy to the Council afterward. He laid the blame at their feet. Every death, every leak, every failure traced back to the single decision to kill Dooku. The Council was not the only institution failing its people. Across the galaxy, the bounty hunters who operated outside the Republic's laws were raising their own. Somewhere in the final stretch of the Clone Wars, Boba Fett was still a teenager, still angry, and still working alongside the most dangerous bounty hunter in the galaxy, Cad Bane. The planned bounty hunter arc sent Bane and Boba on a rescue mission to Tatooine. Tusken Raiders had kidnapped a child. The story drew from the Searchers. Bane had known Boba's father, Jango. He saw in the boy the same cold precision that had made Jango the best. Aurra Sing, Bossk, and Embo worked alongside them, part of a volatile crew that did not take orders well. The tensions between experienced professionals and a teenager trying to prove himself ran through every scene. Bane and Boba were ambushed by Tuskens while camping on the desert surface at night. The plan was simple. Boba would let himself be captured with a tracking device so the Tuskens would lead him straight to their camp. It was a test as much as a tactic. Boba went in alone, survived, and the rescue succeeded. Boba was learning more than survival from Bane. He was learning how to read people, how to control a room, and when loyalty had run its course. Their partnership ended in violence. Boba led an insurrection against Bane, joined by the bounty hunter Carapace and a fighter named Stim. He believed the group deserved different leadership. Bane disagreed. He put the insurrection down with the help from High Singer, Bossk, and Embo. Boba was cornered. Bossk, who respected the boy despite the failed coup, convinced Bane to settle it with a one-on-one standoff rather than an execution. Boba drew, Bane drew. Bane shot Boba in the helmet, creating the famous dent. Boba shot back and killed Bane. The other hunters did not move. Boba had matched the fastest draw in the galaxy. In another planned sequence, Boba fought Anakin on Coruscant. The chase tore through the city's skylanes. Boba used his jetpack, flamethrower, and a wrist blaster before a passing airspeeder struck him. Skywalker reported the encounter to Windu. He had fought a bounty hunter he did not recognize. The story that was supposed to transform Boba from a child into the cold professional of the original trilogy was never completed. Bane later reappeared in the Bad Batch with a metal plate welded to his skull, confirming that the duel occurred while rewriting its outcome before the Book of Boba Fett gave him a completely different death. The mentor versus student throughline was lost. Bane's ship, the Justifier, and his droid Todo 360 appeared fully realized in the Bad Batch episode Bounty Lost. Before the Siege of Mandalore, Ahsoka spent time in the Coruscant underworld. She had walked away from the Jedi Order, and she needed to see how ordinary people saw the war. Below the surface of the capital, the galaxy looked nothing like the Senate Rotunda. The lower levels were run by the Pike Syndicate. Spies moved through back alleys. Mechanics and traders scraped by under the constant shadow of a war that never reached them directly but bled them dry. Ahsoka fell in with two sisters named Trace and Rafa Martez. Trace fixed ships for a living, while Rafa hustled. They had no love for the Jedi, and they had reasons. Years earlier, a Jedi had been chasing a criminal through their neighborhood. The pursuit caused an accident, and their parents were killed. The Jedi offered them nothing except a line about the Force being with them, then left. The girls were given no help, no protection, and no apology. They were given a platitude. Rafa and Trace built a new life out of nothing, running jobs for the Pikes and trusting no one from above. The original plan also included a second arc before the siege, a journey beneath the Jedi Temple itself. Ahsoka would have discovered an ancient Sith shrine hidden in the depths. The shrine predated the Jedi Temple by thousands of years. The Jedi had built their headquarters directly on top of it, either unaware of what lay below or believing they could contain it. Giant skeleton creatures roamed the tunnels. Sidious was exploiting its dark side energy from above. Ahsoka, Anakin, and Obi-Wan descended into the ruins to rescue Yoda. The heroes flew auto-gyro-style vehicles through the darkness, passing through layers of ancient Force user temples built on top of each other, each one older and stranger than the last. The shrine arc was never completed. In the novel Tarkin, published the same year the show was cancelled, the shrine was confirmed as canon. Its dark side energy had been seeping upward through the temple for 1,000 years, weakening the Jedi Order from below. Vader himself was unaware the shrine existed. Only Sidious had entered it. If Anakin explored the shrine during the Clone Wars, Vader could not be unaware of it during the Empire. The mythology was preserved. The episode became impossible. Ahsoka was supposed to carry the weight of both the underworld and the shrine before walking into the siege. She carried only one. Bo-Katan alerted the Jedi to Maul's return to Mandalore. Anakin and Obi-Wan committed forces, but Grievous attacked Coruscant and kidnapped Palpatine. They were pulled away. Before leaving, Anakin gave Ahsoka her lightsabers back. He had kept them and modified them. The green blades were now blue. Ahsoka and Rex stayed behind with a division of the 332nd, clones who had painted their helmets with her facial markings in a gesture of loyalty that went beyond protocol. They stormed Mandalore. Maul's super commandos fought from the rooftops, the tunnels, and the throne room. Maul laid out everything. Sidious had been grooming Anakin for years, and the Republic was already a dead government walking. He offered to join forces with Ahsoka and kill Sidious together. She refused to believe any of it. She defeated him. She could not bring herself to execute him. Then came Order 66. Ahsoka watched clones she had fought beside turn their weapons on her. Rex, tears running down his face, fought his own programming long enough to get one word out: Fives. she removed his inhibitor chip. Together, they freed Maul as a distraction, crashing the Venator-class cruiser into a moon, while the rest of the 332nd hunted them through the corridors. Rex shot at his own brothers and wept. Ahsoka could have killed dozens of them. She chose not to. She cut through their weapons instead. The final image, Vader standing at the wreckage of the crashed cruiser, holding a lightsaber that belonged to no one, while rows of buried clone helmets lined a graveyard behind him. Silence, except for the sound of breathing. Yet the siege was only one of the stories that survived. Others were told in fragments, or not at all. The unfinished Crystal Crisis arc began with a murder. A Jedi named Tuan was killed on Utapau. Her death was not random. She had discovered something beneath the surface of Utapau that someone wanted to stay hidden. Obi-Wan and Anakin were sent to investigate. They landed in Pau City, met with the local Utapauan governor, and began retracing Tuan's steps. A giant kyber crystal sat beneath the surface, larger than any the Jedi had encountered. Sugi arms dealers were trying to sell it to Grievous. The crystal was dangerous. A kyber crystal of that size could power something on a planetary scale. The Jedi stole the crystal and ran. They loaded it onto a giant pack animal and dragged it across open terrain on Utapau, exposed on the rocky plains with no cover. Sugi riders on speeder bikes chased them across the flats, circling and firing from multiple angles. Obi-Wan rode on top of the crystal and fought them off, while Anakin drove the animal forward. The landscape was open, flat, and unforgiving. Every direction offered a clear shot. The Sugi were fast, aggressive, and knew the terrain better than the Jedi did. By the time they reached the city, the animal was injured and the crystal was cracked. Inside the city, the situation got worse. The local governor of Pau City turned traitor and opened the gates for Grievous. The Separatist general brought droid forces into the city streets. Obi-Wan and Anakin were surrounded with a kyber crystal too large to hide and too dangerous to leave behind. On the Separatist supply ship in orbit, Grievous captured Obi-Wan. He planned to execute him publicly, using the general's death as a propaganda victory. Anakin boarded the ship alone. He fought through droid patrols, cut power to key systems, and reached Obi-Wan before Grievous could finish the job. The two Jedi fought their way back to the crystal's location and rigged it to explode. In the final episode, they destroyed the crystal. The explosion consumed much of the Separatist fleet above Utapau. The blast was large enough to be visible from the surface. The ancient Sith once built superweapons powered by crystals of exactly that size. Yoda brought the warning to the Council himself. Long before any other story explained the Death Star's power source, this arc was laying the groundwork. The arc also pushed Anakin's darkness further than any previous story. After defeating a group of Sugi attackers on the plains, Anakin walked past the bodies without slowing down. Obi-Wan stopped walking and looked back at Anakin. The disagreement was quiet, personal, and had nothing to do with strategy. It was about whether the enemy was still a person after they were dead. Anakin said no. Obi-Wan said yes. Neither of them raised a voice. Utapau was strange enough on its own. Other planned arcs would have gone further. A Yuuzhan Vong scout arc was among the most unusual. A giant alien ship entered Republic space. The Vong had come to assess the Republic rather than fight it, testing its strength and trying to understand what the Jedi were. Then people started vanishing from Republic worlds, and whole outposts went silent. Jedi were sent to investigate, expecting Separatist activity. Nothing in their experience matched what was waiting for them. Every sequence played like a horror mystery in the middle of the Clone Wars. The Vong moved through the shadows, studying and abducting without leaving a trace. In earlier stories outside canon, the Vong were immune to the Force. That concept was scrapped for this version. They probably came from another galaxy, but the story never explored their origins. It was focused on mystery, on the feeling of being hunted by something that did not belong. A Rex and R2 arc started as a military comedy about clones and Republic pilots arguing over bragging rights. Rex, tired of infantry soldiers being treated as second class by the Republic Navy, accepted a dare to fly a starfighter. He ended up in the cockpit with R2 as co-pilot. They crash-landed on a moon of Ryloth and found themselves stranded. Rex bonded with a reprogrammed B2 super battle droid, an enemy unit whose programming had been wiped and reset. The three of them, a clone, an astromech, and a battle droid, stumbled onto a Separatist experimental base hidden in the terrain. but what they found there was never revealed. A Kashyyyk arc featured Yoda and Clone Force 99, alongside Wookiees who asked permission from their sacred trees before going to war. Tarful spoke to the tree spirits. Chewbacca played a major role. The Wookiees fought netcasters in the canopy, spider-like predators that dropped from above and struck without warning. Trandoshan slavers worked alongside the Separatist forces, using the invasion as cover for a hunting operation. These central moral conflicts ran deeper than tactics. The clones needed to burn the sacred trees to cut off the Trandoshan advance. They saw it as a military decision. The Wookiees saw it as desecration. The trees were alive in a way the clones could not feel. Burning them was not considered a strategy to the Wookiees. It was betrayal. Yoda's presence was meant to earn the line from Revenge of the Sith. "Good relations with the Wookiees I have." Years later, much of this arc's world building resurfaced in the Bad Batch episode Tribe. The creatures were the same: netcasters, Malelas, Trandoshans. The antagonist was the same: Babwa Venamor. Wreckers' comment that they had been to Kashyyyk before was a direct nod. A return to Mon Cala arc was political, not military. Padmé traveled there to build support against Palpatine's emergency powers. Mon Cala had already been through one brutal war during the Clone Wars. Its coral cities had been shelled. Its people had fought underwater battles against separatist aqua droids. Lee Char had become king during that conflict as a teenager, and he had trusted the Republic then. He no longer did. The Jedi's treatment of Ahsoka had shaken his faith. The Quarren government was gridlocked under Tikis, who saw no point in backing a republic that could not protect its own people. Senator Tundra Domea represented the frustration of a planet caught between two failing systems. Padmé was fighting for democracy on a world that had already seen what the Republic's promises were worth. Mon Cala was also the missing piece of Anakin and Padmé's marriage. In the 2019 comic Allegiance, this arc appeared as a contradiction. The Quarren leader Nosor Ree remained alive through the entire Clone Wars and died decades later in a completely different war. Padmé was not the only character left waiting. Barriss Offee's story was supposed to continue inside the Clone Wars. In the original Season 5 finale, Barriss was supposed to die after her betrayal was exposed. The ending was changed because there were plans for what came next. For 10 years, Barriss sat in limbo. She had bombed the temple, framed Ahsoka, and had been arrested. Then her story stopped. It finally continued in Tales of the Empire in 2024, showing the Empire recruiting her into the Inquisitorius before she eventually defected. One planned Clone Wars story exposed Ahsoka's childhood. In that version, Plo Koon found her in a village tricked by a false Jedi named Latrans. Years later, part of that story resurfaced in Tales of the Jedi, although the finished version dropped the false Jedi and instead focused on her parents discovering her Force sensitivity. The Zillo Beast plotline had been dangling the longest. The creature was captured alive on Malastare and brought to Coruscant for study. Palpatine wanted its indestructible hide for military applications. The beast broke free, rampaged across the capital, and climbed the Senate building before the Republic gunships brought it down. Palpatine secretly ordered it cloned. The scientists who killed it were told to produce another one. The cloning order hung in the air for 13 years. In 2023, the storyline finally continued in the Bad Batch. The Empire's cloning program played out across multiple episodes, with Omega and Clone Force 99 caught in the crossfire. Separately, these arcs were curiosities. Together, they outline a version of the Clone Wars that never got to exist. Laid out in their intended order, the cancelled arcs reveal what the Clone Wars was becoming. The next planned season would have opened with the Crystal Crisis, moved through the Walkabout, Bad Batch, Dark Disciple, and Kashyyyk arcs, and close with Son of Dathomir. The season after that would have continued Dark Disciple, visited Mon Cala, and ended with the Siege, while the Bounty Hunter arc was planned even earlier, and the Top Gun arc was written for a season beyond that. Each new arc pushed the war into darker territory. Crystal Crisis revealed how far Anakin had already drifted, and Dark Disciple pushed the Jedi Council across a moral line they could never walk back. Son of Dathomir stripped Maul of everything, and the Siege ended with a former Padawan burying the brothers who had tried to kill her. The criminal underworld was becoming as important as the war itself. Son of Dathomir was entirely about Black Sun, the Pikes, and Mandalorian super commandos colliding with the Sith. Talzin was a Force user whose machinations could derail plans the Sith had been building for 1,000 years. The walkabout dropped Ahsoka into that same underworld, where the Pikes ran the streets and the Jedi were distant authorities at best. The bounty hunter arc lived inside it. Bane's network of contacts, safe houses, and professional codes ran parallel to the Republic's own military infrastructure. Crime lords, spice runners, and bounty hunters were building their own world underneath the Republic's separatist conflict, with their own power brokers and their own casualties. Mon Cala would have brought the political collapse down to personal stakes, Padmé fighting the Chancellor in public while her husband drifted towards him in private, neither of them able to say what they feared most. In the film, Padmé's opposition to Palpatine is reduced to a handful of deleted scenes. In these episodes, it would have been the center of the story. The Force itself was becoming stranger and wider with every arc. Kyber crystals were being linked to ancient superweapons capable of planetary destruction, while dark-side corruption rotted the Jedi Temple from below, weakening the Order for 1,000 years without their knowledge. Beings from outside the galaxy were entering Republic space to study it. Wookiees treated their forests as living allies, not resources to burn. The cancelled arcs were the last stories where the franchise's creator and its lead storyteller were building at the same time. When the show ended, that partnership ended with it. 52 potential episodes, not the 40 commonly cited. 13 arcs of 4 episodes each, with full storylines mapped for 2 more seasons. The stories that survive were split across comics, novels, unfinished animation, finished episodes, spin-off stories, live-action television, and reference books. Some arrive years after the cancellation, some arrived a decade later, while some never arrived at all. A fan who watched every animated Star Wars show still never saw Ventress die. A fan who read every novel still never experienced Order 66 through Ahsoka's eyes. The Siege of Mandalore is the only cancelled arc that reached the screen the way it was written. Any of the episodes still remaining could have landed the same way. The Clone Wars was never cancelled. It was taken apart and scattered across a galaxy of stories that most fans never realized they were already watching. But these scattered stories all belong to the same window of the war, the final year, the year the Jedi lost control of the Senate, the battlefield, and the man they trusted most, all at the same time. So watch this video to find out.